Hello and welcome to the Forge for August 2025. My name is Phil Hull. I'm the Divisional Director of Mission and Spiritual Development for the Indiana Division, and I help work on the Forge each month. I hope that your summer is going well, and I hope that your men's ministries are continuing to meet in these summer months whenever possible. We are going to continue studying spiritual disciplines throughout the summer and for the rest of the year. This month, we are talking about the discipline of the tongue, and if there is someone who absolutely, positively should not be teaching about a disciplined tongue, it is me. I have many stories of how my words have gotten me in trouble, but one that I tell most frequently when demonstrating how big my mouth gets me in trouble is this. Several years ago, my parents moved back to Wisconsin after over a decade in Florida. They asked me to come and help them unload their moving truck since I was spending the week nearby at Camp Wonderland. While I was there, I was introduced to my parents' new Corps officers. They inquired about where I lived and what I did, and I happily told them that I worked in the program department for the Indiana Division. They replied that their first appointment had been at a corps in the Indiana Division and what fond memories they had of serving there. Then my lack of a disciplined tongue took over. I told them that I loved the city that they had served in and it was one of my favorites to visit. But I also shared that I couldn't believe how inadequate the corps building was. I said something along the lines of, I just don't know what they were thinking when they bought that building. It's so terrible. After a brief pause, they shared with me that they had been the ones who had purchased the building and moved the Corps there while they were stationed there. I don't know if I've ever felt so embarrassed. There is so much power in our words, and it's up to us to decide how we wield that power. Will it be to build up or destroy? James, the Lord's brother, understood this as well as any man in history, and through the use of graphic analogies, he has given us the most penetrating exposition of the tongue anywhere in literature, sacred or secular. Here's what he says. We can make a large horse go wherever we want by means of a small bit in its mouth. And a small rudder makes a huge ship turn wherever the pilot chooses to go, even though the winds are strong. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches. A horse is an incredibly powerful animal. Take 550 pounds, set it on a horse's back, and it will barely snort as it stands breathing easily under the burden. A horse is a half a ton of raw power. Yet place a bridle and bit in its mouth and 100-pound woman on its back who knows what she is doing, and the animal can literally be made to dance. James observed the same phenomenon in ancient ships, as ships small and large were steered by an amazingly small rudder. Today it is still the same, whether it be a fishing boat or a Navy aircraft carrier. He who controls the rudder controls the ship. And this is also true of the tongue. As James says in verse 5, the tongue is a small thing that makes great speeches. Though it weighs only 2 ounces, it can legitimately boast of its disproportionate power to determine human destiny. Our own lives are evidence enough. Never doubt the power of the tiny tongue and never underestimate it. James's principal concern is with the destructive power of the tongue, and this produces a most provocative statement. But a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire, and among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. It is a whole world of wickedness, corrupting your entire body. It can set your whole life on fire, for it is set on fire by hell itself. The tongue has that scope of inflammatory power in human relationships, And James is saying that those who misuse the tongue are guilty of spiritual arson. A mere spark from an ill-spoken word can produce a firestorm that annihilates everyone it touches. Furthermore, because the tongue is a world of evil, it contains and conveys all the world system's wickedness. It is party to every evil there is and actively intrudes its evil into our lives. Taking James's words seriously, we recognize that the tongue has more power to destroy than a hydrogen bomb. For the bomb's power is physical and temporal, whereas the tongue is spiritual and eternal. How does the tongue do all of its damage? Well, there are a few ways. The tongue's destructive power in gossip leads the list, of course. Gossip often veils itself in acceptable conventions such as, have you heard? Or, did you know? Or, they tell me? Or, keep this to yourself, but... Or, I do not believe this is true, but I heard that. Or, I wouldn't tell you except that I know it will go no further. Of course, the most infamous such rationalization in Christian circles is, I'm telling you this so you can pray. This seems so pious, but the heart that feeds on hearing evil reports is a tool of hell, and it leaves flaming fires in its wake. Oh, the heartache that comes from the tongue. A cousin of gossip is innuendo. Consider the story of a ship's first mate who, after a drunken binge, was written up by the captain on the ship's log. Mate drunk today. The mate's revenge? Some months later, he surreptitiously wrote on his own entry, Captain sober today. So it goes with the word unsaid, the awkward silence, the raised eyebrows, the quizzical look, all burdened with the misery of hell. Gossip involves saying behind a person's back what you would never say to his or her face. Flattery means saying to a person's face what you would never say to behind his or her back. The scriptures warn us repeatedly against flatterers, for they are destructive people who carry a legion of unwholesome motives. Criticism and fault finding seems endemic to the Christian church. Perhaps this is because a taste of righteousness can be easily perverted into an overweening sense of self-righteousness and judgmentalism. All of these things are doing incredible amounts of damage in the church today. Verbal destruction comes in many forms. Gossip, innuendo, flattery, criticism, judgmentalism are only a few of the venoms with which Christians inject each other. And the results are universal. Toxic tongues which do the work of the devil for him. James's words are consistently surgical, but none are so penetrating as these. If you claim to be religious but don't control your tongue, you are fooling yourself and your religion is worthless. An exercise in futility. This is a spiritually terrifying statement, to say the least, for it cuts like a hot knife through warm butter, dissecting the cant and piety of the self-satisfied religious. An out-of-control tongue suggests bogus religion, no matter how well one's devotion is carried out. The true test of a man's spirituality is not his ability to speak, as we are apt to think, but rather his ability to control his tongue. Now, James does not mean that those who sometimes fall into this sin have a worthless religion, for all are guilty at times. Rather, he is saying that if anyone's tongue is habitually out of control, though his church attendance be impeccable, his Bible knowledge envied, his prayers many, and his tithes exemplary, though he claims to be religious, you are fooling yourself and your religion is worthless. Offered to God on the altar, the tongue has awesome power for good. It can proclaim the life-changing message of salvation. It has the power for sanctification. It has the power for healing. And it has the power for worship. First, we must ask God to purify our lips, confessing our sinfulness and submitting ourselves to the cleansing touch of the Spirit. Second, hand in hand with the first step, there must be an ongoing prayerfulness regarding the use of our tongues, regular, detailed prayer. This, coupled with the first step, will work a spiritual miracle. Third, we must resolve to discipline ourselves regarding the use of the tongue, making solemn resolutions such as the following: to perpetually and lovingly speak the truth in love, to refrain from being party to or a conduit for gossip, to refrain from insincere flattery, to refrain from running down another, to refrain from degrading humor, to refrain from sarcasm, to memorize scriptures which teach the proper use of the tongue. Men, discipline your tongue for the purpose of godliness.